In this project, we're going to use Adobe Animate as an interaction tool. So we're going to take all of our drawing skills and our animation skills to the next level. By the end of this project, we're going to create a web app. So it's going to be a simple storybook app of your own designing. As we move through, we're going to look at all kinds of different interactions, how to create scenes, how to create various kinds of buttons. So in this lesson, we're just going to look at how to create simple buttons. So we're going to take a bunch of drawn objects and we're going to convert them to a button, and then we're going to look at the timeline for the button, and we're going to create some hover states, press state, and then finally we're going to publish that button as a web app. So we're going to literally work through the whole scene and to see how all of this works. So here we are in Adobe Animate. So the first thing I've done is I've created an interaction folder. So I've called mine Adobe Animate interaction folder. You can do that. And the first one we're going to be looking at is having another folder called Simple Buttons. So make sure you've got that, and your simple button design from this lesson will go in here. So now we've got that set up, let's go over to Adobe Animate and we're going to create a HTML5 canvas as always. And as per always, let's just save this work straight away. So let's go File and let's go Save. And let's navigate over to our interaction folder. So you should have yours saved in the documents. I've got mine saved here on the desktop, but yours should be in your computing folder. And I've called mine Adobe Animate Interaction. So click on this, click on my simple buttons, so make sure it's gone into the simple buttons, and we're just going to call it Simple Buttons. Okay, nice and easy, and then we press save. So now we've saved our work, we're just going to create a button. We can use any kind of objects. We can use pictures that we've got off the internet, we can use text, we can use rectangles, we can literally use anything drawn to create a button. But because this is simple, I'm going to just create two elements. So the first thing is let's rename this layer. So we're going to call it button 1. Once we've got that renamed, let's create a rectangle. Now I like to always put my rectangle in on the bottom part of this button, and the reason for that is it acts as a hit state. So whenever your mouse rolls over this, it will actually work. So sometimes I'll just have a clear white background, just so that I've got a rollover state. Once I've created the rectangle, I'm then going to create some text. So I'm just going to say button 1, nice and simple, and let's just change a few things for this then. So let's change the color to black, and let's change the size to something like, I don't know, 30 or something. There we go, 31. Let's go back to our black arrow tool and let's just move it into place. Now, for this animation, this is pretty much all I need for my button, but you can have so much more. Now, it's important to kind of define the button outline. Otherwise it can cause a few issues. So my button outline is this rectangle, so pretty much everything I do is going to stay within this area, okay? But I'll show you that you can pop the button out as well. So the next thing we need to do, with the black arrow selected, is we need to select all of those elements, okay? So the rectangle, the line, the text, everything needs to be selected. Once you've got everything selected, right click and we're going to convert to symbol. Now, here's the convert to symbol palette, and as per usual we need to give it a name, so I'm going to call it button 1. Okay, so all of our buttons are going to have a new name, and this is one of the only examples where you should definitely rename your buttons. Okay, now the type, we need to change it. Normally it's set to movie. We've used graphic in the past, but the one we have to use today is this button one. If you don't change it to button, it just will not work. So make sure when you're in the convert to symbol, it says button here. If it doesn't say button, everything I show you from now on will not work. Okay, so then we press OK. Once we've done that, it compiles the button and everything works properly. This is called a symbol. So if we come over to our library palette, you'll notice that our button 1 is there, and you can use that as many times as you want. I don't want to use it any more than once, so I'm going to leave it like that. Now, symbols are very powerful, and I've deliberately avoided doing this in all the past lessons because it just confuses students no end, and that is double clicking on a symbol. Whether the symbol is a graphic or it's a video or it's a button, when you double click on it, you get something that resembles a layer within a layer, or a timeline within a timeline, and it confuses everybody that sees this for the first time. But if you look over here, you have scene 1 and you have button, and this is what tells you you are inside the button. You are now looking at the button's timeline, or the symbol for the button. If I click scene 1, it will take me back to that timeline that I was working on before. So when we double click on the symbol, it takes us in and we get this. Now the button timeline looks completely different from the graphic, and it looks completely different from the movie. It just has one layer and it has an up, over, down and hit. The only ones we're going to look at is this up, over and down. Okay, so the up state is simple. We're just going to leave it like this. The over state, we need to click on it first, and then we need to right click and we need to say insert keyframe. When we insert a keyframe, we get a replica of up. So let's keep this simple and let's just change the color. So whenever you roll over this mouse, it's going to change the color. So let's click on this and let's just make it green. I can also change the button text. So let's just change that now and say hello. And let's just get rid of the one. And instead, let's change it to a smiley face. So there we go. We now have the hello, and we can also change the color of it. So let's just show you that you can do that as well. So let's just change the color to yellow. Yellow's good color. Let's also change the outline, because you can do this as well. You can change the outline. So if I double click on the outline, it's currently black, and let's change it to, I don't know, let's change it to red. We can also change the stroke, so you can literally animate any element. You can also add elements as well, but I'll show you that in the next stage. So currently we have up, which looks like that, and we have over that looks like that. Now, if we click on down, right click, insert keyframe, we now have the chance to do a down one. So when you press the mouse down, you'll get this state. So let's change this one to a nice black background. Let's change this red to just a bit thinner. And now let's do something else. So you're in this button and all this whole canvas can be used. It's not really recommended. I would always say stay within this border constraint. But let me just show you that you can add images or buttons outside of this. So if you have a fancy effect that you want to create, you can actually do it here. You can use the hit one, but throughout these videos we are not going to use the hit one. The hit one is used for when you want to code something in there, but we're going to keep this simple. We're not going to use that. So now we've created this, we have one more step, and that is to publish it. We're going to publish this as a web app, okay? And every time you do something new, you do have to republish, or you do have to reset it. So the first thing we're going to do is go File and Save. We must always save our work. Now we've saved it, we can go File and we can go Publish. So in the past, we've used the export dialog, and the export dialog is great if we want to export an image or a video or just a GIF. But in this one, we want to publish it as a web app. You do have settings. Now, for most of these settings, they are completely fine. We have this publish to JavaScript HTML. That's pretty much all we need. Everything else should just work, okay? So I'm just going to cancel out of that. Go File and then Publish. Now, when we publish it, it moves over to this Output tab. So we can move that back to the timeline just so we can see it again. Now let's head on over to our folder. So here's my Cymbal button. And what you'll notice, we have 3 folders. Here's our project. And this is the one we're working on. And then we have a HTML file. It says Chrome because that's my browser. And then we have this JavaScript file. The one, in order to see our web app in work, we just click on this one here. So we double click and voila, it opens up eventually. And there's my button. Now, when I roll over it, it will go green, which is great. And when I hit the button, when I press it, it will do that. So that's a very, very simple button, but as you can see, it's very powerful. So that's the first task. You are going to create a screencast of you doing this. So what I want you to see in your screencast, and I'll attach a video to this post, is to roll over and press it, okay? And that will get you up to the 3. Now, if you want to get the 5, you do have to have an extension, and the extension is to create 5 buttons. All 5 buttons must have different interactions. So when you roll over it, it must do something different, and when you press it, it must do something different as well. You can export this one first, the one on its own, as a webcast, and then you can export this again as a webcast and just add to this project. Okay, so give that a go, and I'll see you in the next lesson.